So today's topic, it's what are we at? The seventh in our
7th month, yeah.
12th, right? 12th webinar series, and these are all geared towards helping companies to recruit great employees and retain them so that they can really hit their business objectives and crush the competition. And seriously, you can do this because so many people aren't. And if you just pick up a few tidbits from what we're sharing today or on the other webinars and you start applying them, you'll see it's really not rocket science. You just have to be consistent and get your message out there. So today's topic is revolutionize your recruitment strategy with these 4 pillars and crush your competition. And Ed's going to be sharing the pillars, but before we get to that, let's tell you a little bit more about what's happening here. So today's generation might seem like a bit of an enigma to some of you that have been in business for a while, but they seem entitled, demanding, and I want to tell you that the reality is that the whole labor force's expectations have changed. And you may have noticed that thing called a pandemic that happened. It seemed like it was the marker where that was where the whole sort of workforce tipped, but it was kind of just a point in time where the shift that was coming down the pipeline got highlighted and really blown open. And once we pulled the lid off and saw what was going on, everyone just said, you know what, I'm out of here. Why am I putting up with this? I have some expectations and I feel like I can voice them. So it can seem impossible to keep up, but you can fulfill their needs and hire the candidates you want when you tailor every step of your employee journey. And we've been talking about this in every webinar so far. And so if you've been on a bunch of them, then you might be starting to get the message that it's just important to be putting out a consistent message to the people that you're trying to recruit and just having this reputation out there as a good company to work for. So we're going to share some things that show you how to do that.
Yeah.
So let's go. There we go. So who's this webinar for? It's for you if you're finding yourself frustrated because recruitment strategies aren't working. And we've been talking about why this has been the case, because the old school method of recruiting that worked maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, and it was still working up to pre-pandemic-ish. Well, now it completely does not work. Putting things up on Indeed or just on Monster and then seeing if all these messages come into your inbox, it just doesn't work anymore. This is for you if your current workforce is burning out because of your skilled labor shortage, and Ed has stories about that to share. So I'm going to let him entertain you with those.
Yeah.
And then finally, if you want to build a recruitment strategy that grabs the attention of today's job seekers, all those people that you think are from generations that just don't get it or don't have a clue, or you don't understand where they're coming from, or maybe you're in that generation and you're going, it's not us, it's not it's not us, it's you. Well, you don't have to shake your head at us, because we've been spending some time trying to understand you and where you're coming from, and we get it, and you're right.
Yep.
People should be treated better.
Yep.
So why do Ed and I get on here every month and hold free webinar series and just give away all the things that people actually hire us to do and tell you all the secrets to like what you need to do to make your recruitment strategy work? Well, we do it free because, well, we do know it's some work. And even if we tell you what to do, there's some moving parts that you got to get handled, and we're really happy to help with those. But ultimately, number 2, we want to make a difference in workplaces, because I got to say, for the over 25 years of my career in the sort of working world, I always just kind of thought, like, why does work need to suck? Like, why should it just be so bad? And you just go there, punch the clock, and then go home, and life starts when you're at home, and hopefully you get to retirement before you die and you can start enjoying your life. Well, I don't think that should be the case. And I think that, just applying some simple things, you could make life a lot better at work, and you could get a whole lot more out of your employees because they like being there. And that's number 3. We enjoy seeing employers and employees thrive. So that's why we do this. Now, next month, we got there's going to be a little bit of a change because I'm going to handle most of that webinar. Our friend Ed here is just he's going to be resting his voice a little, and I don't know if he's going to tell you about that, but I'm going to be sharing stuff about the funnel, the recruitment funnel, and what needs to happen from awareness to onboarding. There's 6 steps to keep candidates in your recruitment funnel, and that's going to be on August 16th at noon.
Yeah, so make sure you join us. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you're still going to be there, right? You're just
I'm going to be there. Yep. I'll be the little church mouse for the most part.
Yeah, I'll take advantage of Ed not being able to talk so much. So maybe I'll get some more words in edgewise. But
Yeah.
what are we going to cover in this session? So this session, we're going to talk about the old school business processes that you have to, that stop people from applying. And there's probably a whole bunch of them that you didn't even think of. 2, we'll talk about why your competition outshines you on social media and the playbook that you need to stop this. And then 3, we'll talk about how you can stop missing out on the wealth of skilled talent by creating a diverse applicant pool.
Hey, ready to jump in?
All right, yeah,
let's jump in.
Okay.
Hey, Paul.
So who's this guy? Ed. Give me a little background here.
Yeah, so hey everyone, I recognize a bunch of the names in the room. I'm Ed Crow. I'm the talent transformation expert for companies that are seeking 8-figure growth. And I work with organizations on the things we've been talking about in this webinar series with Paul. And I focus a lot on the behind the scenes processes and the leadership development behind how we become employers of choice in the place that people want to be.
All right. And I've been working with Ed over the last 3-4 years.
Yeah,
it was
years already.
During the pandemic. And Ed reached out to me to help him with the story behind his business. And me, I'm all about stories. I like people's stories. I like businesses' stories. And the doctor thing in front of my name there, it's because I'm a chiropractor. And for the last over 25 years or so, I've been really treating and studying the reasons why people come to me with physical, mental, emotional problems due to bad workplaces, right? Just the effect of sitting in a job you hate and going there every day and what it does to you physically, mentally, and emotionally. And then about 8 to 10 years ago, I just decided, you know what, let's go to the source of this problem and change that instead of fixing the impact it has on people. And by partnering with people like Ed, I've been able to get to the other side of the desk and work with the people that are in charge of these organizations, helping to make better culture, better workplace for people so people are inspired. And that's really why there's this partnership here.
Yeah, it's working quite well, I do believe. So let's hop in. I'm going to set the table, and then Paul's going to put all the food on it for us. So let's talk about this recruitment strategy. And we mentioned in the title that we believe there's 4 pillars to an effective recruitment strategy. And I want to talk about those 4 first. And then Paul and I will get into, well, how do we really do this, right? I mean, and so the first one, it sounds obvious. We have to attract talent from a bunch of different sources. And when I ask HR folks or recruiters or whatever, I'll say, well, what are you doing to attract people? They'll say, oh, well, we're on Indeed. Okay. What else you doing? Oh, well, Indeed gets us out on these other websites. Okay. To me, that's one source. It's an internet job posting. That's one source that you're pulling from. Oh, but we pay Indeed that we can go farm resumes from them too. Okay, that's still one source. So when I think about a diverse set of sources, I think about, okay, do you have to be online on the major job boards? Absolutely you do. But what about social media? Are you posting jobs on LinkedIn? Are you advertising through, maybe Twitter's a good thing, or Facebook or TikTok or whatever? You got to know your workforce, okay? But social media has to be in your playbook. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the hour. why you have to be on social media, and then most importantly, what should be on social media as far as your recruitment efforts. But ultimately, you've got to look at where is the talent that you want. And judging by some of the names in the room that I'm familiar with today, you're probably looking for talent that's already employed. And so it may not be enough to put an ad on Indeed or LinkedIn or whatever, because they may not be actively looking. They don't know how good it is at your place of business. So we've got to go find them where they are. And that's the fundamental piece of looking at a diverse set of sources to recruit from. And later on in our webinar series, we're going to talk about metrics. And I'm a bit of a numbers geek. I love to play in that world. And so the other benefit of having a diverse set of recruiting sources is you can start to look at the numbers and find out not only where am I getting the most applicants, because that's what people tell me. I get the most applicants from X over here. Okay, great. Where are your best hires coming from? So you might get 1,000 responses on Indeed. But what if every time you post an ad on LinkedIn, you only get 5, but that's where your hires come from? Okay, well, that seems to be your best source. So those are things we're going to talk about later in the series, but that's the importance of a diverse set of sources, is that you're hitting people where they're at. And that's going to be part of Paul's comments in a little bit here. Second piece in our recruitment strategy is we've got to look at skill shortages. So today we know everybody is short-staffed. So I was with one of my clients this morning, and they are a construction type entity, and they're struggling to find like project managers and estimators, which is critical in the construction industry. Okay, so for them, that's a critical skill shortage as well. It's not just a body shortage, but they need people that can come in and hit the ground running. So they can't hire someone green in this job. It's really not a situation where they can train up, because the person has to have some skills in CAD, has to have knowledge of the industry and those sorts of things. And so if we don't understand the skills that we need to be successful, we can't possibly build a recruitment program around that. And so it's not enough for us to say, I've got 5 open positions, I'm going to go recruit. No, it's what are the skills that I need? So I have another client that had an executive assistant position open recently. And, we all know what executive assistants do. I mean, they run the office, they support the executives and so on. They had been through a couple of folks who just, they had the skill set, but they didn't there was something missing. They've given a young lady a chance right now who, yes, did she have everything you needed on paper? Absolutely. But they hired her because of almost the it factor, right? That thing that you know it, you see it, but you can't quite define it. She's got it. And in fact, now in a lot of our executive meetings, she's giving input. Like, she's supposed to be there to take the notes and all those other things. This gal is a sharp cookie. She has a very bright future because she's got some cool skills that, while they fall outside of the realm of an executive assistant, are ones that this company is looking for. And so we have to identify the skill shortages that we have and go find those skills. And you might find those skills in positions that maybe you're thinking you don't need right now. But when you find the skills, we got to find a way to get that into the budget and make that work. The third pillar of an effective recruitment strategy is that it strengthens your organization's employment brand. Now, Paul and I have talked in previous months about your employment brand. And 2 months ago, we talked about the 8 pieces that make that up. And last month, we talked about the piece that culture plays in that. And you can, if you missed those webinars, you can hit my website up under the webinars tab, and you can pull those videos to get caught up. But our recruitment strategy should play into our entire employment brand, part of which is how we train our people, how we retain them, how we reward and motivate. So that it becomes one of those self-fulfilling prophecies. If we recruit the best in, our employment brand builds because people are now happy, And those happy employees are out talking about how great a place we have, and now our recruitment. We all know that even today, there are places that if they run an ad, hundreds of people flock there because they want to work to this place. Okay. And maybe they're the big names. Like maybe you hear, oh, I want to go work at Google. I want to work at Microsoft, or whatever it happens to be. Okay. But there are local organizations, we'll call them the mom and pops, that are the bread and butter of the US, and Paul's in Canada. It's the same up there, right? That they can compete with the big boys. They absolutely can. And if you're one of the smaller players, you can compete with the big boys, because it's all about what experience your people want out of their work. And Paul alluded to that, and we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. So ultimately, your recruitment strategy helps you to create a workplace that engages all your employees. And you say, well, wait a minute, Ed, if I'm engaging all my employees, how does that affect my recruitment strategy? Or how does an effective recruitment strategy create that? Because one of the things we're interviewing and recruiting for is attitude, right? That old idea that we can teach skills, but you can't teach attitude is absolutely true. And so I'm a big believer that if we hire for attitude and we train on skills, the engagement piece happens naturally, because I don't have to worry about people with bad attitudes, right? So when I look at these 4 pillars, I think of this as a chair, right? You would never sit on a 3-legged chair. You find some 3-legged stools, they're not all that stable. A 3-legged chair is not stable at all. So these 4 pillars are really what's going to hold your house up in terms of not just your recruitment strategy, but as you can see by the 4 steps, it runs out into everything related to how we engage and embrace our people. And so while Paul and I have each month been breaking down little pieces, if you've been joining us each month, or even just a couple, you're starting to see the overall theme here, that all of these little octopus tentacles, they still all connect back into one head. And that head has to be that overall employment brand that's driving everything that we do in HR. And so, Paul alluded to this in his opening comments. Things have changed, especially since the pandemic. We were seeing it a little bit before, but the pandemic just threw gas on the fire. And so recruiting has changed. And today's workforce, it's complex. I mean, yeah, we still got 4 generations in the workforce, and all of us are different. We want different things. But now you overlay the idea of, well, gee, I want to work remote. Was that the right way or the wrong way? I don't know. What I do know is there's a right way and a wrong way for your organization. So when you see in the news I think Elon Musk has recently said, hey, remote work's going to be the death of the American workforce. We got to get people back. And everyone went, oh, why would Elon say that, right? And then you got Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank calling Elon out on that and saying, what hole are you in? That's basically like, today, you can find talent anywhere. Why would you confine talent to a geographic area or whatever, when people with today's communication ability can do exactly what we're doing here? I mean, as you've heard, Paul and I have been working together for 3 or 4 years. We've seen each other in person, twice? I think something like that.
Yeah, it was like 2-3 years into the relationship too.
I mean, it just it works. So we've got the technology. I'm a bit of when you look at 70s TV, I'm going to give my age away. I was a big $6 Million Man fan, right? And at the beginning, I used to say, we have the technology, okay? We do. We've got the technology to make these things work, but that's part of the complexity of it. How do I make Paul feel engaged when maybe he's the only remote person? Okay, that is a different thing to handle, but that's not a reason to not bring Paul on because he's remote, right? If he's the best talent, he's the best fit, then let's get him in here. Paul's going to talk about this idea of social media, okay? It has totally been a game changer for us. And, there are people out there, and maybe some of you in the room are that way, that are saying, I hate social media. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Twitter. That's fine. Personally, from a business perspective, you've got to be on social media. I'm not convinced you need to be on Twitter anymore. Quite honestly, I think Twitter's become kind of a one-way feed for journalists and things. But based on your business, you definitely got to be on LinkedIn. You probably should be on Facebook. You should probably look at Instagram or TikTok. Okay. I don't know which of those is necessarily right for you or if all of them are right for you, but you need to explore that because that's where your people are hanging out. It's where your employees are hanging out. It's certainly where the younger generations are hanging out, which means that could be where your next generation of workers is hanging out. And the client that I was with today, we got to talking about how not only do we need to be on social media from a recruiting perspective, but their concern happens to be, hey, we recognize that not only is that where the next generation of workforce is coming from, it's probably where our next generation of customers is coming from. So we want to start engaging these 20 and 30 somethings with our brand, maybe not just as employees, but so that as they're rising up through, maybe their procurement managers are going to be in charge of bringing us in on a project. We want them to say, hey, I know that company. I've been seeing them around for years on social media. So this idea of recruiting and marketing, we're starting to blur the lines a little bit on social media because the messaging is very, very similar. And Paul's going to dive into that here with us. And so this idea of your employment brand, it's got to address multi-generations. There's got to be something in your recruitment package for everybody. So, as a guy in his mid-50s, I want something different now than I did when I was in my mid-20s, than when I was in my mid-30s, and I was in my mid-40s, right? And so we've got to think about the messaging we're putting out there may need to be different across different social media platforms or even different internet platforms. So if you believe that people in the middle of their career are hanging out on LinkedIn, you're probably going to have one message for them. If you believe people earlier in their career are hanging out on Instagram and TikTok, you're probably going to change that message to attract them. And there's nothing wrong with that. It means that as HR folks, we have to do a little bit more work, obviously. But to me, it's no different than if you were marketing, let's just say soda, right? And you got regular cola and you've got orange flavor and grape flavor and you got a lemon lime flavor or whatever, you may market those differently to appeal to different people, to build your customer base, okay? The same principle applies when we're talking about recruiting candidates. You may have to get different messages out there based on the types of candidates you're trying to draw in. And so the one-size-fits-all recruiting really doesn't fly anymore with the speed at which life is changing and the speed at which social media is changing. And then finally, and Paul's gonna hit on this pretty hard, what processes are going on that are a barrier to engaging talent? So one of my clients told me the other day that one of her neighbors came up and said, hey, do you have, our kid is starting at, we've got a local trade school here in central Pennsylvania. It's a 2-year school for kids. And they put out great talent. In fact, normally all of their kids halfway through their second year already have jobs, and many of these extremely well-paying jobs. And so this kid's going to be going to this school starting in September, and he doesn't just want summer work, he wants to work through school. And she says, yeah, I'm pretty sure, let me get that over to our recruiting function. And they were like, well, we don't really have, we don't really need what he has. And she says, look, I'm not going to tell you to hire him because he's my neighbor's kid. I'm going to tell you, we got to look at this kid because he can tear a car apart and put it back together at 18. Like, that's a skill set. So we're out here fabricating and working with metal and things. And we need, when we're fabricating, guys to see the big picture and what they're welding and doing. This kid has that skill set. So HR says, yeah, okay, gotcha, boss. So from the time that they chatted with this kid till they got him in just for a shadow with a supervisor to walk around, 3 weeks. That's an eternity today. It's a miracle the kid still wanted to even go there. So I don't know what the slowdown was. why it took them 3 weeks. Was it scheduling? I don't know. To me, there's zero excuse for that. And so we all have those kinds of processes that are getting in our way. We have to identify them and get them rectified. So what we're talking about, and again, if you've been on a couple of calls now, you've heard us refer to this idea of the experience age. People want to experience life. You see it in how we use social media. And all of this was spurred again, really by COVID. During COVID, we're in the lockdown, and what did we start doing? We started buying online. And you order on Amazon today, and it shows up tomorrow. To me, that's fascinating. And you're talking to a guy who spent a long time at UPS getting boxes from point A to point B, right? But this idea that I can order something at 4 o'clock this afternoon and it'll be on my doorstep by noon tomorrow still amazes me. Okay, that level of self-service and the getting things now is starting again to drip out into every other piece of life. We want stuff now. Well, what does this mean for our recruiting efforts? Well, it means that we've got to be timely. We can't let a week or 2 weeks go in between an interview and, say, a phone interview and a live interview, and a live interview and a plant tour or a job shadow or whatever it is, right? We've got to move. And we've got to do background checks and they take time. I understand all that. But we've got to move the process through because people want it now. And honestly, with everyone looking for talent, if we don't move, someone's going to make them an offer and we're going to miss out. It's that simple. We've got to move fast. Paul's going to talk too. In fact, he sounds like he's going to do a lot here. He's going to talk about this idea of our smartphones, right? We do everything through our smartphones. So we've got to have a plan for not just where the messaging is going to be, but does that messaging show up properly on a phone? So I know I just redid my homepage this week. Rolled it out, all looked good. Then I brought it up on my phone and called my web guy and said, hey, look at this. This ain't working right. Looks great on the big screen, on my desktop, phone, not so much, right? We've got to double check those kinds of things. And Paul's going to talk more about that. And so ultimately, if what you're hearing is our expectations of service are changing. We expect a higher level of service from people. Last night, a buddy and I went golfing. And afterwards, we went to get some food and a beer. And we went to a local craft brewery, and the place was packed. And the host said, hey, it's going to be, 5-10 minutes for you guys to get a table. Give me your phone number. I'll text you. Great. He said, now you're welcome. Go over to the bar. You can grab a beer. So we do that. We come back over towards the host stand, and we're standing there chatting and drinking our beer. And we're about halfway through our beer, and we're like, seems like it's been longer than 5 or 10 minutes. I pull my phone out of my pocket. I had never heard the beep. There were 3 messages on my phone saying that the table was ready. Okay, I missed them. But here's the kicker, guys. We were 5 feet from the host stand, and there was only one other couple waiting to be seated. How did the kid that was at the host stand not remember these 2 kind of sweaty guys from golfing walked in and asked for a table 5 minutes ago? Like, to me, I'm just saying, what are we doing? And when I went up, I said, I guess I missed these texts. He says, yeah, I was wondering if you guys wanted your table still. You couldn't turn around and just look at us and say, hey, guys, your table's ready. To me, that's incredibly poor service. And so when you look at that, you say, okay, is that an engaged employee? Is that someone I want at the front desk welcoming my folks? No, it's clearly not. So he took us to, it gets better. He took us to our table. We sat down and we were kind of hanging out there. And no waiter comes or anything. And we're like, huh. Well, then we look at a little sign on the table that has the QR code to scan for the menu. And it says, please order at the bar and the food will then be delivered to you. Well, it would have been nice to know that. Right? He's like, here's your table, guys. And that was that. We were sitting there, we're hungry, So that idea of, it's back to the skills we're looking for. What kind of skills do we need? And what skills can be taught versus an attitude? that guy clearly, I'm not saying he had a bad attitude, but is he really the person we want greeting our people when they come in? These are our level of expectations have changed. And so when you look at it from a service perspective, from a person who is coming in to apply for work with you, they're expecting a high level of service. They're expecting callbacks quickly. They're expecting timely interviews. They're expecting that the process is going to move pretty quickly. A couple of weeks ago, I was down in Atlanta doing a seminar, and a lady came up to me at the break and she says, Ed, I have a story for you. And so again, when Paul and I tell stories, we don't make stuff up because we hear them all the time. This lady says to me, she said, I recently interviewed for a position, and I went into the interview, and she said, I got a really bad vibe off the start, but I figured like when I was in the waiting room and just the way the receptionist handled me, but she thought, I'm going to take this interview. And so she sits down with this lady, and this lady proceeds to, for 10 minutes, just boom, boom, boom. This is what we want. This is how it's going to be. This is what we expect. And she's just like she hasn't even asked, how are you doing? She said, Ed, after she finished her little 10 minutes, I said, ma'am, thank you very much. This position isn't for me. Gets up to leave. And this interviewer says, the interview is not over yet. I didn't excuse you. This lady, so the lady who's sharing this story with me says, well, ma'am, I don't need your permission to leave. I'm no longer interested in working at this organization. And obviously she left. We hear these horror stories. That's an expectation of service. We're treating, in many cases, candidates like they're there for us. Those days have changed. That's 10 years ago. Now we're fighting for these people, and we have to act like we want them, just like we fight for and act like we want our customers. So, Paul, on that note, please tell me no one on this call has a phone on their desk that looks like this. I see DePolly's on this call. DePolly, do you have this phone on your desk? I don't know. I don't think so. No one in the organization DePolly's with, they don't have rotary phones anymore. But Paul, take it away.
That makes me think of lunch hour at this elementary school, and they would you would get the privilege of sitting in the secretary's office and answering the phone while you covered their lunch, and you get to push all these buttons, and it was the coolest thing, and because that was technology, right? But these days, with these phones here, this is actually better than my computer, right? And I think that's what most people in today's generations are finding, is they can do everything and more on their phone than on their computer. And just the other day, I had a legal document, and I took pictures of every page of it because I needed to actually make changes, because I wanted to give it to a lawyer in the format I wanted, rather than paying the hundreds of dollars an hour to have them do it. Right. And so I just took the pictures, and then the phone recognized all the text, and I was able to copy it and paste it in a document. And it's crazy. I couldn't do that on my computer. Right. So that's what we're dealing with, is that people are relying on their phones more and more. And if your process for getting in the door to your company can't be done by a handheld mobile device and, on a screen this big, you're going to be losing a lot of people. And if your expectations are that, well, people should want this job, therefore they're going to jump through the hoops, you're going to lose a lot of people. Just like Ed was saying, we used to be able to expect people to behave a certain way to get a job, that they would actually want to invest effort or put in the what it takes to get a job. When I hear you tell the story about typing up your cover letter and putting it in an envelope, licking it, sealing it, putting a stamp and mailing it and waiting. Well, the speed of change has just accelerated. The hockey stick has happened. We're beyond that. And it's just exponential. It's not even just doubling, it's tripling, quadrupling. It's so out of control. We have to keep up. And you can't expect people to deal with things that aren't working instantly. instantly,
Yeah.
instantaneously. If clicks don't work, if links don't work, they're gone. There's another link. And the other thing that you said, Ed, was that was really interesting is just that the talent you want out there, they're in other jobs right now. They're not actually even looking on Indeed at these postings. They're looking for, they're just looking for things that interest them. And then you need to convince somebody that's in a job that they kind of like. You know, they're actually getting paid pretty well, and they sort of like the people they work with. And you need to appear better than them. You need to show them that they're missing out and that they could actually flourish and grow and thrive in your organization. And that was never the case like before. We never had to market that, like, how good is it to work here? Now we have to make people just, you know, get FOMO about your organization. And how do you do that? That's by showing experiences. And what better place to show these experiences than on social media, like on, you know, I mean, those meals that you think that somebody enjoyed so much on Facebook because they were at the latest restaurant and you saw all these nice dishes, or you see them savoring something or eating something, you know, makes you want to have it. That's the same thing you want to be doing about your company on social media. And it comes down to a story. Like I said, I'm a guy all about stories. So on your platform, like, to apply for the job, is it easy? Can you actually click through the process on your phone, or does it take 52 clicks? Like, who was that told us that?
Yeah, we heard, you know, the average number to get through an online application is 52. It's a vendor that is in the HR information system market. Yeah. Can you imagine, like, 52 clicks? And then I don't know if you've ever filled out these I think application processes for getting say your DNS server changed over or whatever, and you fill it all out, and then it gives you this message that says, okay, well, we'll notify you, and then asks you another question, which makes you second guess whether you gave them all the information right. So you go do it again because it's, like, important. Well, people aren't going to do that. So there can't be any confusion that leaves people hanging about whether they got the application submitted right or not. It has to go through the first time. So those are business processes that you need to consider. And then the people along the chain, like, is it going to take a really long time before they hear back from you? You don't have time to wait, because either they're just going to go back to their job that they're actually enjoying, or they're moving on and they're getting snapped up somewhere else, because everybody's hungry for these people. So don't waste any time. Yep.
All right.
I love, when most people say up and to the right, you know, your business goes up to the right, but spoken like a true Canadian, you said it's a hockey stick is happening.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, you know, yeah.
You got the flat and then up. Yep. All right, so, Mr. Post and Hope.
Well, the really sad thing is, you need a job description. You absolutely do. You need to list all the different things that you're looking for and the requirements for the position. And you need that internally. You need to define what skills gaps you need to fill. You need to define the skills that the people applying need to have. But when you're putting the job out there, you need to show the experience. That's the age we're in. It's no longer about, like, do you just meet the requirements? You're selling an experience to the workforce. So if you're using just the job description and you're putting it up there, those are just bullet points and lines. It doesn't tell me anything about how great your company is or how much I want to work there. And if I never heard about you before, and I don't know that you're not, say, and I don't even know if Google's great to work for, but, like, if you're not, say, Google, and you don't have that reputation that's been built up and hyped all along, then what are they going to know about you? Nothing. They just see bullet points on a page. So what we're going to be showing you is just, like, show people, pull the curtain back and let people see inside your company and see a person just like them doing something that maybe, like, I'd like to do as well, right? And actually enjoying it. or somebody talking about how much they've learned since they've been here. So show people the experience, just like you're sharing your experiences about your holidays, just like you're sharing your experiences about a new tool or gadget that you got and that you're like fixing your yard with. Like, I mean, I see those things on Facebook or Instagram all the time, but companies need to be doing this as well. And you know what? Who better to get to do it than the employees or the people that are good at using those devices and the social media channels? Right? Just have some criteria that that allows them to know what's acceptable and what's not, and how we do things. And that's really what it comes down to. Is you want to have people really bought into what it means to be at this company and what we're all about and what we stand for, because that's the heart of it. And when it comes down to the stories and the brands, like when people are buying a brand, it's because they buy into the story and who the company is, what they represent, what they're all about. It's the same for working there. People want to be part of something bigger. They want to know that there's meaning and purpose behind it and that they're doing good. So if that's what you stand for and you have these core values and things, like, have you looked at them since you stuck them on the wall or you wrote them down? Or are you actually living them, and can you prove it?
Right.
So let's move on here. We talked about the mobile devices, and Ed's talking about his website and is it mobile friendly? Well, this QR code, if you scan it and you and then you enter the link, the address to your careers page, you can actually check and see how mobile friendly it is. And a lot of the times your website is going to be mobile friendly, but then when you get to that where the jobs are posted and where they're hosted, that could be a whole different ball game. You might find that it's actually just the web view or something really obscure. But the stats show that in terms of millennials, 68% use their mobile device to search for their jobs. And then 61% of the applications were completed on mobile devices in 2020. So it has to work that way. And if 61% of them were completed on the mobile device, how many were just dropped because it didn't work? And that's a person that could have been the one that revolutionized something at your company, and they just didn't fill it out because they were annoyed.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned earlier. Yeah, you mentioned earlier, Paul, too, about the fact that the effort it takes now compared to before to apply is nothing. Excuse me. And so people say, oh, well, they lack commitment. Maybe, I mean, we could have that debate, but yeah, if you've got an onerous online job application or it just isn't working right on my phone, I'm just going to take my talent to someplace else that's easier, making it easy for me to apply. I think I've shared, one of my pet peeves in my traveling that I do is, you find a restaurant and then you say, well, do I want to go? Then I'm going to bring up the menu. And half of them don't have their menu posted online. And the half that do, it's a picture of the menu that you can't open up and actually read on your phone. Well, what good is that? I won't go there. I'll go somewhere else because I want to see if they got something I'm interested in. And so does that make me lazy as a consumer? No, it just means I don't want to have a bad experience at a place when there are other places that are making it easy for me to determine if I'm going to have a good experience. That, I think, is the mindset that we're trying to drive home here, Paul, is, you got to make it an experience for people to apply and that it's a good one.
And we're not saying that you have to be on the cutting edge of technology and have all this down, because I mean, I'll still eat at the restaurant that I have to look at the picture and move around. It's just that when somebody does it well, and I click, I can click on the menu item and I see pictures of it and descriptions and all sorts of things, I'm just more likely to think that, wow, if they did this well, then how good's the experience going to be in the real life, right?
Exactly.
So that's what you have an opportunity to do here. Is we're in the new reality of the workforce and recruiting, It's just that most of everybody and organizations are back here in the old reality. And
Right.
when you get over here, you have an opportunity to just blow everyone away. And that's why we're saying crush your competition.
Mhm.
And it doesn't take a whole lot. It's just show the experience, right? And make sure that the experience is true and reflects your values, like who you are as a company and what you believe in. And if you really always go back to that, you're going to win all the time.
Absolutely.
And that's because we're talking about these candidates that are out there. And so, you know, we have 4 generations in the workforce. Yes, the majority of the candidates coming in, I mean, people that are of working age, like in their 20s, and people that are into the workforce, these millennials that I know, like Ed and I, we were just like baffled, like what the heck when millennials started entering the workforce. Well, they just think differently because every generation does, right? And they don't see things the same way as we do. It's like having kids, right? And I don't have any, but you know, Ed has a handful, right? But you just don't understand how they get to their conclusions, like how they rationalize things, because they have new inputs, they have a fresh perspective, and they're from new ways of thinking. And that's what we're dealing with, is a bunch of generations that just see things differently than we do. So we have to present things the way that they're going to want to see them. Because yes, in our day and age, we just sucked it up and we did what we were told and we jumped through the hoops to get jobs. People don't do it anymore. And we think, well, they will because they're going to have to pay their bills. And then it's like, they still don't. They just live in your house and and let you pay the bills or whatever, right? So that's and it comes around and bites us in the butt, right? So we have to bend and do these things. So these people, they're going to take their phone out, they're going to look up your company, and they're not just going to look up your company and read about what you say, oh, you know, our values are this, that, and the other things. They're going to be like, well, let's see the proof. You know, what have you actually done for the environment lately? What have you actually done for social causes? Can I see you out there? Are you supporting something? And what do the employees do at those social causes? Are they actually helping to raise money and help these people out? Or is that just something that you thought you could put on your website to look nice and tick the box that you're supposed to support your local community? We want to see people in the community. So if you have your employees posting, this is us at the whatever parade, this is us, and we raised $50,000 for helping homeless in our city, and we're really happy about it and excited about it, and you can see that the team is really happy about it and excited about it. Well, that's going to give you a lot of credibility, and it's building that trust, because people don't have trust nowadays because it's so easy to connect to everyone, and because these generations have been online and connected all the time, their trust is really low. So you got to do your part to build up that trust, and all it is letting your people tell the story of your company. And the big question is, do they know the story of the company? Do they know what your story is? And do you know how to tell your story? Because that's what people want to know. Because if they know about who you are and why you do things, and how they're going to grow as people by joining your company, and how they're going to be able to help social causes that they believe in through your company and identifying with your values, they're going to want in. So show them something they can believe in. They want real-time updates. Like it's the time of instant gratification. It's the time of information right now. So if people are on a job site doing something really amazing and your company is really proud of it, they can post that feed live and show it, right? You don't have to wait for the news to come around and someone to video it. Like they can upload it right now to your channel, to your social media channels, and people can see that, wow, every time something really great happens here, somebody on the team is so excited that they share about it. That's a team I want to be part of.
Yeah, I mean, everyone, you know, a lot of people, we shouldn't say everyone, but a lot of people we talk to, Paul, you know, they say, oh, well, that costs money. No, it doesn't, because everyone's phone is a video camera, and they don't need to be professionally produced. In fact, sometimes it's better if they're not. They're just out there. Hey, it's Ed. I'm working with Paul today. Hey, and Paul's waving his hand and we're out here doing this in the field or whatever. People love that stuff. It doesn't have to be professionally produced. Just off the cuff, 20, 30 seconds, and it goes out to your social media network, works wonders.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked to companies or on other webinars, and we've had people say, well, we have social media channels and we put stuff out, but it's our marketing department that does it, and they everything needs to be approved through marketing, and everything needs to this and that and be in our marketing plan. Well, that's how you put boring stuff out on social media that nobody actually looks at or cares about.
One of those processes.
How do we know that? Right. And then there's just like, well, we can't trust our employees to like put good stuff up, or we can't have problems like that. It all has to be clear. Well, what if you just taught people how to behave as employees at your company, right? And in alignment with your values, and they could use their judgment to decide whether, well, is this appropriate or not to put it up? And if you have that level of trust in people putting that out on social media because they've been shown and they've proven to you that they're aligned with the company values, then you're going to win so much more than by being in fear of them putting up something wrong or bad. You'll gain so much more by having that information about your company out there and shared. And companies that do this well, HubSpot, I keep on talking about them because they just seem to be doing everything right, and they get it. And they have a channel on Instagram just to show what it's like to be an employee at HubSpot. And the people that post are excited to share because it's fun to be there.
Yeah.
And they want a better digital experience, right? And digital experiences are like improving all the time. Well, we can do more digitally. Is it making our lives better? It remains to be seen. But we can't just say they should be committed enough to jump through those hoops and do it, or deal with a clunky platform, because that reflects on what it's like inside the company. And if it's this hard to actually apply to the company, what kind of business processes, what type of, what's the interior organization of the company going to be like? The bureaucracy, the paperwork, the chain of command. Like, am I gonna have to put up with this kind of crap in there? I don't know if I want to go work there.
Exactly.
So ultimately, it comes down to, if you want to recruit the best, well, there's the 4 pillars that Ed shared. Do you want to recap them, Ed?
Yeah, I mean, so you think about it, we want to have a recruiting system that hits different and a diverse set of sources. It's got to impact our employment brand. It has to engage our people. And ultimately, it has to have messaging that's appropriate for not only I talked about the different generations, but even messaging that's appropriate given the types of people we're trying to attract in. The language and the stories you would use to attract in a welder would be different than a chemist in a lab, let's say. And so those 4 things are we've got to get those in place. And we've talked a lot about how to get them in place today. And one of the things that we like to do for folks that have attended our webinars is, it's yet another freebie for you. But if you scan this QR code, it'll take you to a link to grab a half an hour of time with me and Paul free of charge. Maybe you've got an issue you're trying to work through. Maybe you've heard something on the webinar today that struck you as oh, hey, I hadn't thought about that, and I need to figure out how to do that. Grab, again, scan this, grab some time with us. We're happy to chat through your issue and share any additional wisdom that we can that will help you along the path. It's one more way we feel is important for us to give back. So I know we're getting near the top of the hour. I want to open the chat room up. I haven't seen any questions come in yet, but now would be the time. If you have questions about some of the things that we talked about, or maybe how to apply them in your organization, again, you can either raise your hand or throw it in the chat for us, and we will we'll take a look at that here before we cash out. And so while folks are thinking about that, Paul, when I think about that story that I shared with the lady who basically got up and left the interview, and your final comments were there, like people were trying to figure out, do I really want to put up with this kind of stuff? I mean, she knew in 10 minutes what life was going to be like there by the way she was being treated. I mean, I can't imagine someone acting in such a way and then expecting someone in the market we're in to actually say, oh yeah, I want to put up with this. I'll come work here. When there are so many opportunities out there. And, if she told me that story, how many other people did she tell? Right. I mean, it's the same situation as customers, right? When you get bad service, you tell, what do they say, 10 people. When you get good service, you tell 2 or 3. The average person. I don't see anything coming in the chat. So want to end with a thank you, obviously, for attending again this month. We're seeing some regular faces, which is great, and regular names, and we always get some new ones every month. And so that it's great. It's gratifying for Paul and I to get to share some time with you once a month. Again, next month, Paul's going to introduce to you a concept that we've touched on, but it's been a few months, but we're going to go in depth on the recruiting funnel that he's developed and really take a deep dive into this concept of, many of you are probably familiar with a sales funnel and how you pull as many people in as you can, and then you continue to vet them out until the customers come out the bottom of the funnel. We're going to look at that, applying that same kind of logic to the recruiting process to ensure that what comes out the bottom are really high quality employees. And Paul's a master of that. And he's going to run most of the show for you next month. So buckle down for that one, everyone. So on that, any final comments from you, Paul, before we wrap up?
I think it's just always fun, always a pleasure to share and just and hear the stories that I didn't know were coming. So thanks again, Ed, and we'll catch up with you next month.
Okay, thanks everyone, and we'll talk soon.